morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to welcome you to today's webinar, SEO for the DIY website or web designer. We are so glad that you could join us today. This webinar is a partnership between the Maine SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and WanderWeb. And I'll say a little bit more about our presenter today, Corey Daigle, and WanderWeb in a moment. I have a few housekeeping points that I just want to go over quickly. Again, thank you for being here today. We are recording our webinar and we'll be sharing out both the recording and the slide deck later on. So please watch your inbox for that. We're going to ask you to stay muted for the time being, but we encourage questions. So please feel free to pop your question into the chat or mute and ask your question. That would be great. Definitely encourage that. For those of you who may be new to the Maine Small Business Development Center, our mission is to help Maine small businesses start, grow, and succeed. And we do this by offering webinars just like this, as well as free confidential one-on-one business advising. So if that's something of interest to you, feel free to reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat. It's also on the previous slide. And so feel free to reach out and ask questions either about the SBDC or about services or about our webinar today. This session is part one of a three-part series, which again is a partnership between the SBDC and WanderWeb. So you'll see for the next 3 Wednesdays, today, next week, and the week following, this is the lineup for our SEO series every Wednesday for the next these 3 weeks at 11 a.m. I'm especially excited to introduce today's presenter, Corey Daigle, who's the owner-operator of WanderWeb. Corey works with businesses near and far to help them strengthen their online presence and marketing. She has a wealth of knowledge to share, and we're thrilled to have her leading this session and each session in the series. So with that, I'll hand it over to Corey to get us started.
Good morning,
Corey?
everyone. Hi. Thanks, Jen. And also thanks for the opportunity to be able to present today. I'm Corey. I founded WanderWeb in 2019. We specialize in websites, but mostly search engine optimization for small to mid-sized businesses that depend on local customers. I did start my business with help from the Maine Small Business Development Center. So Maine SBDC is near and dear to my heart. I also served as a specialty advisor for the Maine SBDC during COVID. Our mission at WanderWeb is to help businesses grow, and offering these no-cost presentations is one of the ways we give back. So let's get started into search engine optimization. If throughout the presentation, I tend to be a fast talker, so if I speak too quickly, can you just let me know by putting in the chat, please slow down. If you do have questions, we'll have a Q&A session near the end of the presentation before we wrap up, and some offers and freebies. The slide deck today will be sent to you after the presentation. Jen will send it to you. And my recommendation is to download and print the slide deck to use it as a checklist. It's designed to be used as a checklist itself. So let's get into SEO, or search engine optimization. So SEO is very simply making it easy for search engines. And what I mean by a search engine is, for example, Google, to find information you want to share with customers or clients. There's 2 types of search engine optimization. The first is organic or free search engine optimization. The second is paid, and you'll often hear that called ads. Okay. Today, we're going to be discussing organic search engine optimization, specifically what you need to do on your physical website to optimize it for search. In upcoming webinars, we'll talk about local search engine optimization, and that will discuss how to get foot traffic to your business. So if you have a physical location or a physical region that you'd like to be found in, we'll be talking about that specific subtype of search engine optimization. And the following week, we'll talk about content search engine optimization. That will be a really robust discussion on how to write content that your customers will resonate with while meeting search engine requirements. Search engine optimization or search engines, the way it works is there are these bots or spiders that crawl every word and piece of content on the internet. And they go from site to site to site and collect information about those pages and put them in a massive library, right? So when you're typing into Google, say, or Bing, that's your librarian curating the answer for what is on the World Wide Web, okay? So the success of the queries or your search engine optimization considers about 200 to 250 different ranking factors that vary at any given time. And the ranking factors will estimate how well the answer they give will meet the intent of the searcher. Okay. So basically, they'll estimate how well a website or page can give the searcher what they're searching for. Okay, so let's see. So let's get into how we're going to optimize for search. This is where the checklist piece starts. All right. Just remember, you don't need to write too many notes or to-dos. You'll get the recording and the slides after this presentation. Today, what I'd like to do is educate you with the reason and the logic behind why things are done. And hopefully you'll be able to apply this logic to your specific situation. In the Q&A, if you do have questions about specific things, I'm very happy to answer them. The basis of everything to do with getting found online, marketing, succeeding in business, is understanding your customer. All right. The most important thing you can do in business and in search engine optimization is achieve market fit. All right. Creating a product or service that addresses real pain points, actual pain points for a clearly defined market, and then making it feel natural and valuable to users who want that product and want to tell other people about it. So if you remember one thing from today, this will be the thing that I'd like you to remember. The business that knows its customer the best is the business that wins at search engine optimization. Okay. Some customers are just looking for information and some are looking to buy, and you need to be prepared to speak to both. Okay. The first way you can do that, and the root of search engine optimization, is keywords and long tail key phrases, or the words that people type into search engines and therefore you should have on your website. Using words and phrases in your content that your customers would search for give Google a better understanding of what your site is about. So they're doing that customer intent match that we talked about in the beginning. This also allows Google to improve the match between what people look for and what they're finding so that searchers get the exact answer they're looking for. So doing keyword research for your business is a huge part of making sure that you're putting the right content onto your website, into your profiles on Facebook, Google, everywhere that you would be found, right? So what I suggest is start with brainstorming based upon the things that your customers are asking or looking for and make a list and then test them in search engines. So what I would do is take a word that I might be looking for or a phrase. For example, artisanal lavender soap, right? If you're just going to go for the word soap, you're probably not going to rank because there's Dove and Procter & Gamble and all those brands out there, right? So think about your business, right? And what makes you special. So say you're starting with artisanal lavender soap. Type that into the search engine and just see what comes up. Type it into Google, Bing, Yelp, whatever. See what comes up. And then just start to dig deep. Um, Looking at what other people are searching for, looking at what people the businesses that are already ranking for are coming up as and the other words that they're using. So do a lot of testing in your search engines. And then there are research tools available like SEMrush or Ahrefs. It's HAREFS.com. And then you want to pick realistic keywords for your business. Like I said, so there's a difference between soap and artisanal lavender soap made in Maine, right? So if someone is typing artisanal lavender soap made in Maine or Maine artisanal soap, you're much more likely to come up for that than you would be for soap in general. Does that make sense? Because soap is saturated, right? So you want to go for words and phrases that you're likely to rank for. And sometimes that involves including a location modifier, and sometimes it includes being just very specific on the type of product that you have. Another really, really important high value thing on your website is now that you understand your keywords and you've done that research, make sure that they're in your title tags. So does your website clearly say where you are and what you do? All right. If not, ChatGPT, Google, any place that people are looking for you might be confused. All right. Here's the fix. What you need to do is for your title tag, and you can see what my title tag is here. So WanderWeb, websites and SEO, right? That is our title tag. So it doesn't just say home, right? Or it says home with WanderWeb websites and SEO. That is the name of our website. Okay. Um, so my recommendation is if you're a location-based business, include the keyword and your town and city in your website title tag. All right. If you're serving a location. Otherwise, you can just put in what you do. All right. Specifically related to keywords. Your business name doesn't necessarily have to have keywords in it, but your title tag should. Okay. An example would be custom wedding cakes, Portland, Maine. Okay, that's a really good title tag instead of just home or welcome. I often see home, welcome, right? Let's take this opportunity to be a little bit more specific. This one small tweak can make your business immediately findable. Okay. The next step is add meta descriptions to each page of your website. And so this is what would come up in a search engine. Remember, we've got our title tag here. And then this would be the meta description. This is the description of each page. So a meta description is a tag used to describe the content of your web page. And meta descriptions appear on the search results page, just like this. So there'll be a list of meta descriptions for each business. They have the power to help or hurt your click-through, right? Because it's what patients, sorry, I was a nurse for many years and I'm still saying patients 10 years later. It's what customers or clients would be deciding whether to click through on. So Google says they don't read meta descriptions, but they do provide them and they edit them. So you can provide your own meta descriptions. Depending on the search intent, Google may modify them. I can't guarantee that you'll get the meta description that you type in, but it is good practice to include a meta description for each page. Meta descriptions are kind of like tweets. The goal of them is to get them to click through. So they're around 140 to 160 characters long. My recommendation is to keep it less than the 160 characters so you don't see the ellipsis at the end, leading into more content. So it will cut you off mid-word or mid-sentence if you have too many characters. So aim for about 140 to 160 characters, including your target keyword. And I love it if you could put a call to action, right? Call now, book a consult, whatever. Each of your meta descriptions should be different. So every page should have its own description. Your about page should have a different description than your home page. And you want to avoid the duplication of your meta descriptions. And so make it meaningful and descriptive and matching the page. And depending on your website content management system, there should be an SEO tab on your website backend that you can fill these things in. Moving on to alt tags. alt tags has a lot of benefits for photo SEO. And your photos, and when I say SEO, in the past, I've given this presentation a few years ago, and it was much less robust. Search has really changed, and AI and learned language models have really changed the game for us. And so instead of search engine optimization, I actually like to say search everywhere optimization because people are searching for you in different platforms now. And I'll give you some examples of queries and prompts that people would use in order to find different businesses later on when we touch a little bit on content, but we'll really get into that SEO for AI and bots and things like that when we get into the content presentation 2 weeks from now. So search engine optimization, search everywhere optimization, or just plain search optimization is anywhere your customers are looking for you. They could be looking for you on Instagram or TikTok, which are surprisingly really popular search engines now. ChatGPT is a very popular search engine. And so, again, going back to knowing your customer and knowing where they're searching for you so that you're optimizing in the right place and using your marketing time wisely. Because as a business owner, you wear all the hats, right? You're the CFO, you're the CEO, you're the COO, you're the chief marketing officer, right? So figuring out how to spend your time efficiently is a big part of running a business. So knowing your customer and only spending time in the places that really matter is really important as a small business owner. Going back to images, your photos stand a chance to be found in Google Photos or any of the sites where people would search images, which, if that makes sense for your business, means more traffic and a nice SEO boost, right? So adding relevant keywords or phrases to queries that your potential clients would type into Google when looking for you into the alt tag for the images is best practice. So my advice to you is to describe this image simply and accurately. We don't want to keyword stuff, all right? Don't just drop all your keywords in there. Just describe the image simply and accurately using strategy. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. So that the search engine understands what's going on the screen, because strategy is important. So this is an image of Michael Toole. He's a financial advisor we worked with to create their website, and he's located in Bangor, Maine. So naming this image, it depends on what the goal of my website is. So let's talk a little bit about strategy. So if I was creating a website for a online commerce store that sold menswear, I would name this image something very different than I would name it if I was creating a website for a financial planning company, right? So if this were a menswear company, I probably would say blue shirt, striped tie, gray suit, right? Tortoiseshell glasses, depending on what I was focused on in the image, right? But because we're really in this image, we're focused on getting Michael Toole some traffic. I'm going to name this Michael Toole, comma, financial advisor, serving blah, 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 maybe, maybe not, financial advisor, comma, Bangor, Maine, Clearpoint Capital. That's what I would name this image. Does that make sense? I could name it 1,000 different things, but because my strategy is to get traffic for Michael, so if someone's typing in Michael Toole or financial advisor in Maine, then his image will come up, right? So that's a very different strategy than I would use for a commerce site. Even though it's the same image, I could do 1,000 different things with this image. I could do headshot. I could name it headshot, right? And the name of the photographer who took it. So there's lots of different ways that you can use strategy in order to optimize for search. Again, understanding your business and your customer is important. The other recommendation I have, and this is just a complete aside, it's a business recommendation, is please invest in brand photography. If you can invest in anything in your business, that is one thing that you probably can't do yourself. And those images will take you so far. High quality brand visuals can be used over and over and over and over again for years. They're such a great asset to your business. So I do recommend, usually if anyone is coming to me and they're not ready for our level of service, which is really helping them really expand and grow, usually what I recommend for them to start with is, hey, do DIY some stuff, but I do recommend brand photography for you, right? Because you can just use that for years. I'm still using the same brand photography that I had 7 years ago. And what that is brand recognition for us at this point. Those bright yellow images of, and the glasses and things like that, they make us stick out. And it's just brand recognition. Okay, so we've talked about title tags, meta descriptions, alt tags. Those are the tags. We've done all the tagging. The next thing I'd like to talk about is your hero message. So the hero section of a website is that piece that you see at the top when you land on a page before you start to scroll. And for those of us who were around in the ages of newspapers, that's the above the fold information. That's the high value area, right? So the most important part of your website is the hero message that's on your main landing page, which is usually your homepage. So spend some time here. A well-crafted hero message will grab the attention of your customer and entice them to really go further, right? So the goal is to be clear and direct. Keep the information simple. Please don't use jargon. Please don't, you're not Nike. You can't say just do it. Nobody knows what that means, right? We are small businesses, and so being really specific about what you do, who you do it for, and the results you get should be included in your write-up on your hero section of your homepage. Okay, remember that often when people land on you, they've never heard of you. So um, being fun and funny is great if you have a lot of brand recognition, but initially, although you can be cheeky or catchy or conversational, you really need to be clear. Okay. So on your homepage, if you don't have what you do, who you do it for, and the results you get, I would like you to go back and rewrite that hero section. The next thing that people really see on websites are your headlines. These have to rock. These headlines, the only job of the headline is to get people to read the first line of the paragraph. The only job of the first line of the paragraph is to get people to read the second line of the paragraph, right? So we're going to talk about all of this in more detail in the content presentation in a couple weeks. But just keep in mind your headlines have to be catchy, be interesting, and include your keywords because when search engines read your website, they'll read your headlines as high value information on your website. So if your headlines don't have any keywords or information that really applies to your business, then I would go back and edit those headlines. Every headline should have something to do with information for the business to read while appealing to your customer, for the search engines, pardon, to read while appealing to your customer. Okay. In the back end of the website, when you're creating your content, you're able to tag headlines and let Google or other search engines know they're most important by giving them an H1 tag. Okay. And so you know how even on Google Documents, you can select paragraph, text, title tag, H1, H2, H3. You can do that on your website as well. And my recommendation is your H1 is the primary and most important heading that provides the main title for the web page. So make sure your H1 has what you do and some keywords in it. The H2s should be, and you can only have one H1 per page. Okay, that's your main headline. You get one headline. Okay, and then you can have H2 and H3 sub headlines and sub headlines, I guess I would call them. I don't know if there's a technical term for them beyond H1, H2, H3. But those three search engines will look for and read and prioritize, and they know that they're important information. So please use those tags in your content and make sure that your keywords and information that's important for Google to read and understand and your customers to see as priority, they're tagged that way. And if you're using, say, Squarespace or Shopify, there's often already a format set up where the main tag, the biggest font on the page is your H1, the second biggest font is your H2. That's sort of already set up for you, but take a look and just verify. I'd like to talk a little bit about content today. Um, Google is sort of the leader in SEO. So when I say Google today, I mean all search engines, right? But their algorithms are designed to identify content that demonstrates something called EEAT. And I don't mean that they want a burger. EEAT stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trust. And so these are the main indicators that Google looks for in content to recommend businesses that they find online. So here's how you can establish EEAT without even understanding what EEAT is, right? These are the things that I want you to do. Your About section should share your background and credentials. Okay. If you have blogs, that's a great way to demonstrate your knowledge and expertise. Case studies, which are kind of like blogs, but they show the results that you get. Okay. If you have a product or service, please include some testimonials. And FAQs are a great way to answer the questions that customers are asking. Again, these slides are going to be your checklist. So we've got this listed for you. Your About section, blogs, case studies, product and services, pages, and FAQs. How are we doing? Am I losing anybody? Is this too fast? Okay. This is information. Remember, you'll have this webinar. You can go back to it and refer to it over and over and over again. And you'll also have the slides as your checklist, okay? Making your website very user-friendly keeps people on your site once they arrive. So some of the things that you should make sure that you have on your website to make it as user-friendly as possible is easy navigation. When customers come, they should be able to find what they're looking for within 3 clicks. Okay. Your pages should load fast. And there is a mobile speed test that will test your website speed that I will share with Jen after the webinar, but it's pagespeed.web.dev. And I'll share that with Jen to send out to you. But that will test your page speed for you and tell you where you need to do some work. You may need a developer if your page speeds are very, very slow. But you can start with compressing some things and just, honestly, Google, how do I improve my page speed, right? The other thing that this will test is mobile friendliness. Most people today are searching on their phone as opposed to their desktop or laptop, right? So now mobile first design is recommended. What does mobile first design mean? It means that you're designing your website to look good on mobile, and the desktop view is a secondary design intention. So when we're designing our websites for clients, we're looking at mobile optimization as a priority. And I will tell you that I still see really professional websites they probably have great developers that aren't mobile friendly. So it's something to really think about. The other user experience trick that I would recommend is connecting related content throughout your website by internally linking them. So hyperlinks from your web pages to other parts of your website so that the journey flows naturally. When Google or any search engine they are measuring your website performance, they're looking at if people are clicking through and engaging with your website and how long they're staying on your website. Those are really important metrics, right? So an example of this is like if you wrote a blog post about a service or a testimonial blog post or a case study, you could link back to that service from within the blog post. Does that make sense? I also recommend a clear call to action. So be clear about what you want visitors to do when they come to your website. Do not ever assume they're going to know what you want from them. I do work with clients that have said to me, well, I want to train them on how to do that. I want to train them to be able to go here on my website. Nope, that's not the intent of this. We really need to make it so that it's intuitive for your visitors to go where you need them to go. Your calls to action should stand out. Those are like what you might hear us call them the buttons on your website. Make sure that they're always noticed. So whether they're a bright color or really large or something that really draws the eye, with commanding language that directs the conversion. So you might see click here. That's not specific enough. I would say um, book a call. That is commanding language, right? So some of the more common calls to actions on websites are submit a form, right? You might want them to submit a form, enter their email so that you can send them an email follow-up or put them into your list. Um, Book a call. Those are some of the ways that you could use calls to action. Shop, okay? Go to shop, go to the shop. I do like to see calls to action. Um, so first of all, you want to make the language clear that everyone understands. And I recommend having calls to action in a few specific places. The first place I recommend your call to action is in the upper right-hand corner of your menu. And then what I recommend is I would say every big scroll, if that makes sense. Like if someone is scrolling down, they should see a call to action like every time that they really do a decent sized scroll. You're going to feel like it's too many. It's okay. It's okay. If it's something that makes sense within the flow of the website, then you should have those calls to action. I like to say that you get two click opportunities. One is that red button in the upper right-hand side of the corner of your website for them to leave, or a call to action or going deeper into your website. So you want to engage them further into your website. I'm going to lightly touch on technical SEO or technical search optimization, just lightly, and simply because these are complex concepts that I want you to know about, and you may or may not need some support with. But the first is make sure your website security certificate has been applied and is active. And what that does is you'll see that little lock in the search bar when you type in the URL that shows that it's a secure website. Okay. Otherwise, you'll see this on the website. Your connection is not private, right? And I do see that regularly. People will create websites but not apply a certificate of security. Okay. The second thing that I would say is make sure your URL or your naming structure of your pages is really clean. And this is often an issue with commerce sites because you'll create a product and then duplicate that product and update it. But what it then does is give you this really weird number type URL. Like that makes absolutely no sense. See that all the time. We just onboarded a baby clothing company that we're working with, and all of their product URLs were numbers and letters. It didn't say what the products were. So the naming convention of your website is pages are really important. You can go back in and change the name of those website pages. All right. So if you've got a category and then a subcategory, that might be a good way to name your website. So it might be wanderweb.com/blog, right? Because it's a blog as the category. And then how to SEO like a pro. That might be the name of the page, right? Very different than this. No one's going to type this in. They're going to look at that and think, what the heck am I looking at here? So this is my page of don'ts, by the way. And the third thing is make sure your pages are all active. So you want to make sure that you don't have any dead pages that you've created and then gotten rid of. People will have something called cookies on their computer, if you've heard of them. That is the memory of your computer to load things quicker for sites that you've gone to in the past, right? So your computer will kind of memorize things so that your load time is quicker. But if you've got dead pages, then this is what you'll see. So what you want to do is a redirect. If you've got a page or you're changing your site structure, make sure you do a redirect to an active page. Again, you might need some support with these. These are more technical things, but they're important to look for to know if you have an issue, right? And then submit your sitemap to Google Console. If you haven't submitted your sitemap to Google Console, what Google will read it eventually, they'll get to it. But what happens when you submit your sitemap to Google Console is Google will say, oh, I need to eat those words. I need to send my bot across those words to read them and refresh my memory with that website. So something that's in our practice is we do a lot of updates on our client websites. We refresh content a lot. And so when we do major updates, we resubmit the site to Google to say, hey, FYI, new stuff here, important for you to know. Okay. And you just need to go to Google Search Console to do that. GoogleSearchConsole.com. Moving on from SEO is something called schema. And again, this are technical. This is again more technical stuff. Schema is basically structured data. If any of you have worked in data management before, it's your discrete data points, entering them in a discrete way that makes them flow over to Google or search engines in a way that they're expecting to read them. So like the slot fits into the slot, right? So it will make it more likely that your whatever it is will show up online. So examples of schema that you might want to make sure are on your website, and again, you may need some technical support with this, but I want you to know it exists, are your location is a schema. So Google and other search engines have a process for listing location, right? And you want to make sure that is addressed on your website. Your products can have schema. FAQ sections are really important to make sure that you have schema, and FAQs are sort of becoming a really important part of your website with the way people are doing voice search these days. So we'll talk again about that in the content one in a couple weeks. Reviews have schema. Google demonstrates them or shows them in a specific way, right? And events can have schema. Those are some of the high level categories. There's categories for restaurants, menus, recipes, anything you can imagine. There's a format for it, but this will be something that you just should be aware of. And my advice to you is if you have a website platform that you're working with and they have sections that you should put that content in and it's already in a format, please just use that format. Don't try to change it. Hopefully, I'm crossing your fingers, that will be already set up to flow the way it's supposed to. You can find out specifics on schema at schema.org, SCHEMA. And this is an expert level tip. All right. Analytics. Have you ever heard the term, if it's not measured, it's not done? I think that we've all heard it 1,000 times, but take a look at your analytics to see what's working. All right. Please note, see what's working. These are the metrics that I suggest you look at because you could look at, there's thousands of metrics. If you set up Google Analytics there's so many things you can look at. This is what I suggest you look at. The first thing I want you to look at is the number of visitors that are coming to your site. The second is how long they're spending or time on site. And the third thing that I'd like you to look at are the pages that most people are going to, your most popular pages. Those are just, if you have problems with any of those metrics, it's kind of low-hanging fruit to go in and make some interventions, right? There's, again, you could look at very different things like how many people are clicking on this button compared to this button. Like you could look at anything, but these are the three things that I would recommend that you're looking at. Number of visitors, the time they're spending on your website, and the most popular pages. You don't need Google Analytics or GA4 to do this. You can put in any analytics plugin and we'll give you this information. Okay. Keep it easy. Don't go ninja unless you have to. Okay. So a little quiz. When you're working on, I want you to think about this. When you're working on your website, do you work on the pages that need traffic first, or do you work on the high traffic pages? What do you think?
The high traffic.
Yep, you got it. Working, optimizing for what is already working and making that a really great experience is a good use of your time. All right, now let's do two truths and a lie, SEO edition. All right, so I'm going to go over 3 topics and I want you to think about which one is incorrect. So the first is your Google business profile is just as important as your website for showing up in local search. That's your first one. Number two, updating your website's old content is better than creating new content. Three, stuffing your website with keywords, the more the better, is the way to get found online fastest. Which one's a lie? Okay, so number one, your Google business profile is just as important as your website for showing up in local search is true. And we're going to dive into that next week on the 24th at 11 a.m. when we cover location search. All right. Number two, updating your website's old content can boost your rankings faster than new content. Also true. And we'll cover that when we talk about how to create content that users and search engines love on the 1st, October 1st at the 11 a.m. conference. Okay. The third, stuffing your website with keywords is the fastest way to get found online, is a lie. All right. Search engines are smarter than that. The topics we discussed today are the way to go. All right. I wouldn't be doing you a service today if I didn't cover a little bit about future-proofing your business. For some reason, I had trouble saying that, but it's important. Okay. So remember, we talked about understanding your customer. That is the foundation of everything. And you can work with your small business development advisor to make sure you have a rock solid avatar and you understand your customer. When I first started my business, I had a picture of my ideal customer, the person that I wanted to meet, and everything I did, I looked at that picture. I named her. Her name was Mia. And I said, would Mia like this? Would this interest Mia? Would Mia find this fun? Would Mia find this funny? Would Mia find this and want to engage with it? Everything I did was for Mia. Couple years later, as I grew, I had a page, and now I kind of have I'm more B2B, so I focus on a specific type of business. But my advice to you is don't chase the algorithm, chase the human. Okay? SEO can get very technical, but if you just look at what your customer wants and provide that information, be where they are, then that's the most efficient way for you to get found online. I recommend also optimizing for voice search. Queries have changed. The things that people typed into search engines are very, very different now with AI and voice search, right? And so recommend optimizing for voice search. Highly recommend it because, for example, before I might be optimizing one of my businesses I work with a business up in northern Maine, eastern Maine actually, that has a farm and campgrounds and so before I might think, okay, family camping in Maine, those are great keywords for this business, right? But now I'm thinking, when people are asking, they're not just typing in family camping in Maine, they're saying, voicing, where can I go camping in Maine with my 8-year-old son who likes dinosaurs and my 10-year-old daughter who likes reading? That's the change, right? This is what we're dealing with now. So understanding your customer is a huge part of future-proofing your business. And for this, I love frequently asked questions. I recommend my clients have FAQs on every page of their website because on the home page, you can do FAQs and talk about your business and the benefits people get. On a product or service page, you can do FAQs and talk about the product or individual product or service and answer very specific questions. So FAQs are a great way to optimize for voice search. One quick tip that I'll give you that, again, we're going to talk about when we get into the copywriting one in 2 weeks, copywriting webinar, is when you read your content out loud, if it doesn't sound like something you'd say, you probably should rewrite it. So read it out loud. Future-proofing your business means learning about your customer, keeping your content relevant and fresh, and using the data from your analytics to confirm what's working. Okay? It doesn't mean you failed if you try something and your numbers drop. You failed if you tried something and your numbers dropped and you didn't do anything about it and not learn from that change, right? So confirm that what you guess is working because a lot of this is just trial and error guessing. A lot of it is educated guessing, but it is still guessing. I do have an offer for you. Before we take questions and Jen wraps up, this is a bonus that I'd like to offer you. At WanderWeb, our mission is to help businesses grow. And as part of that, we send out weekly tips. They're usually things you can do in 10 minutes or less for your business. It's not spam, it is not sales, it is practical actions, similar to the things that we talked about today, but with maybe a little bit more guidance. If you scan the QR code on the screen, you can sign up for that email. A new series starts October 1st, and it's 52 weeks of practical tips for what you can do to optimize your business for a search. You're welcome to it. And here is my contact information for anyone who's interested in reaching out to me directly or following us on Instagram. We're at WanderWeb_SEO at Instagram, and here's my email address. Please feel free to reach out. But again, you have Jen here or any of your advisors to support you and give you guidance. And again, I cannot say enough great things about them. They've been so integral in our business. This is a time if you have questions, I'd love to answer them. You can come off mute and ask about specifics or drop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Corey. Good to see you.
See you too.
I actually did have a question about how do you optimize for voice search? What is different with that than the keyword search?
The biggest thing I think about voice search is making sure your content answers the type of questions that your customers would be asking in a way that is readable, right? And so the example I gave about camping in Maine versus where can I go camping with my 8-year-old who likes dinosaurs is a very different type of search. And those are the things that people are voicing. They're talking to search engines and Chat GPT or other AI tools as though they're another person, right? And so considering that in your content is important. That would be where I would start. There's some more technical things, but that's really the crux of it, honestly.
And I know that you in the past have given, places to go for like keyword searches, but are there any places that somebody could go to look up like voice searches, like how to get, optimization on that? Examples.
Okay. That I'm not really sure of if there's because it's sort of an art, not a science,
Okay,
right? Yeah. And
makes
so
sense.
there may be sites that would do that, but it's really around the way people are searching with query-based searches now, as opposed to typing in just a few words. And then making sure that your website flows in a hierarchy that makes sense to search engines. So your headlines and your subheadlines flowing in a way that makes sense is important in a good site structure.
Sounds good. Thanks.
There's also a lot to do with accessibility, which is something each slide that I talked about today, I could talk about for 3 days, right? So accessibility is optimizing your website for disabled and like, for example, for visually impaired people, for hearing impaired people. And so there are overlays that you can put on your website that will optimize somewhat. I call it accessibility light. Um, and you can put a plugin or an overlay on your website that will help with that. That doesn't meet all of the criteria of the WCAG guidelines. However, it will cover a lot of the low-hanging fruit. And there is some nervousness around accessibility and web design in the Maine community currently. There's been some litigation recently. Does that answer the question? Okay, thank you, Chris.
Like we got a
Cornelia?
raised hand there.
Yes,
Cornelia?
yes. Thank you so much, Corey, for this presentation. That was amazing. I have a question. So I just started my business, and so I had several coaches and other people who helped me, and most of them said websites are not important anymore. Would you agree on that? Because it sounds like websites are really important.
Okay. There have been situations where I have worked with people that have had really, say, for example, a really robust LinkedIn. They were a consultant and they had a really robust LinkedIn presence and they were asking about a website. And she'd already developed a seven-figure business using LinkedIn and was wondering if a website was necessary for her. I wouldn't say that it was 100% necessary in that situation. Where a lot of these websites and grabbing your handles and all, like all your social media channels and all of that comes in handy is with your trust and authority. And Google recommends businesses based upon your presence online. And so if you don't have a website, it's unlikely that Google would bring you up. However, if all your business is on LinkedIn, go all in, right? Do what works. So it's a case by case scenario. What I would say is most businesses, it's the rare business that should, I can't imagine a business that shouldn't at least have a landing page, right? And something that I do recommend for all businesses is that they go onto all channels that they can find, everything, all the social media channels, all the registries that they can get on and link to whatever it is that you find is your where your customers are. And that might be so for example, you might want to grab Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even though you don't have those, but then you can put a couple posts up about what you do, who you do it for, and then say, for more information, go here and send them to your root source. And that way you're spending your time where it really matters.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Does that make sense? That way you're gathering and you're getting your
Makes
trust and authority
sense.
across the World Wide Web with
Yeah.
your information. And so you automatically get credence or credo, I don't want to use the wrong word, with Google and other search engines. However, you're not spending time in places that don't matter.
Okay, yeah. Great. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer. We've got about 5 more minutes. I'm so glad that we ended early. I was worried about the content being so in depth. Um, and I hope to see you all next week at the location search engine optimization class, which will dig into how to get foot traffic or calls or clicks for businesses that work regionally. So this would be a really good webinar for someone that has a physical brick and mortar location or someone that covers a region like a plumber or a hairdresser, something like that, that may cover a region. This will be a really valuable class. People that search for local services are very high intent searches. So gathering those searches will be really valuable for any given business. I'll hand it back to you, Jen.
Yeah, this was awesome, Corey. Thank you so much. This is actually, we can skip over this slide because I double checked that link and it's not active, but if you would like to evaluate the session today, you can use the link that's actually in the chat there. Any other final questions that folks have? Again, we hope to see you next week. If not, we'll see you at the next one. Just typing my email into the chat as well. Looks like that's not active, but you get the gist. Again, thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it. And have a good rest of your Wednesday. Are we Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday.